I didn't cry when my father told me I was being sent away. I'd stopped crying years ago. Tears required hope, and hope required the belief that someone might care enough to notice them. My father's eyes were already distant, looking past me toward something more important. My mother had stopped meeting my gaze the day my wolf failed to emerge on my 16th birthday. My brother, the golden child with his perfectly timed shift and his robust brown wolf, had simply pretended I no longer existed. So when father called me into his study that gray morning, I already knew. The way he wouldn't look at me. The way his jaw tightened with something that might have been a shame in a different man. "The Northern Ridge Pack has agreed to take you," he said, his voice flat. "You'll leave tomorrow." I didn't ask why. I knew why. I was 22 years old and still wolfless in a world where your wolf determined everything: your rank, your value, your right to exist within a pack. Without one, I was nothing more than a burden. A reminder of failure. A weak link that made the entire pack vulnerable. Will they? I paused, searching for the right words. What do they want with me? My father finally met my eyes, and I saw it there: guilt, yes, but also relief. Relief that I would soon be someone else's problem. That's not our concern anymore. And that was it. 22 years reduced to a single sentence. I was being given away like a piece of furniture no one wanted but couldn't quite bring themselves to throw out. Except they had finally found someone willing to take me. I didn't ask any more questions. I simply nodded and returned to my room, the smallest one in the pack house, barely large enough for a bed and a dresser. I didn't own much. Wolfless pack members weren't given much. We were tolerated, not valued. That night, I lay awake and tried to remember the last time someone had touched me with kindness. My mother, perhaps, when I was very young. Before the waiting began. Before every birthday became another disappointment. Before I became the daughter she couldn't quite look at without flinching. I wasn't angry. Anger was for people who believed they deserved better. I had stopped believing that a long time ago. Welcome to Floxy's Shifter Romance Tales. Please subscribe to my channel and tell me where you are watching from in the comment section. I appreciate you. The Northern Ridge Wolves arrived at dawn. There were 3 of them, 2 men and a woman, all of them radiating the kind of casual power that made my father's pack members step back instinctively. They wore dark clothes and darker expressions, and when they looked at me, their gazes were assessing and cold. "This is her?" the woman asked, her voice sharp. My father nodded. He'd already signed whatever papers needed signing. Already accepted whatever payment they'd offered. I didn't know the details. No one had thought to tell me. "She's never shifted," my father added, as if they might not have been informed. As if this might be grounds to refuse the transaction. Part of me hoped it was. The woman's lip curled slightly. "We're aware." One of the men stepped forward, pulling out a length of silver-tinged rope. My stomach dropped. Silver burned werewolves, even wolfless ones like me. It was used for prisoners. For criminals. For people who needed to be controlled. Is that necessary? I heard myself ask, my voice smaller than I'd intended. No one answered. The man reached for my wrists, and I didn't resist. What would be the point? I'd learned long ago that resistance only made things worse. The rope burned where it touched my skin, a constant stinging reminder of what I was, so low that even silver restraints were considered appropriate. My father turned away. He didn't watch as they led me to their vehicle, a large black SUV with tinted windows. He didn't say goodbye. Neither did my mother, watching from the pack house window. Neither did my brother. I was alone, as I'd always been. The drive took hours. They didn't speak to me, these Northern Ridge wolves. They barely spoke to each other. I sat in the back seat, my wrists burning, and watched the landscape change from the familiar forests of my childhood to darker, denser woods I didn't recognize. The trees here grew closer together, their branches intertwining overhead to block out the sun. Everything felt heavier here. Older. More dangerous. Where are we going? I finally asked, my throat dry. You'll see, the woman said without turning around. I didn't ask again. We drove until the sun began to set, until the woods became so thick I couldn't see the sky anymore. Finally, the vehicle slowed, turning onto a narrow road that seemed to appear out of nowhere. And then I saw it, the compound. It wasn't like my father's pack house, which had been large but ordinary, designed to blend in with human architecture. This was something else entirely. Stone walls rose from the forest floor like ancient fortifications. Towers stood at each corner, their windows dark and watchful. Everything about the place spoke of power, of permanence, of a pack that didn't need to hide what it was. My heart began to beat faster, a sick sort of dread settling into my stomach. What had my father sent me into? The gates opened as we approached, massive iron things that moved silently despite their size. Guards stood on either side, their eyes tracking our vehicle with the focused attention of trained warriors. These weren't ordinary pack wolves. These were soldiers. We pulled into a courtyard, and the woman finally turned to look at me. You'll do exactly as you're told, she said. You'll speak when spoken to. You'll go where you're directed. If you cause problems, you'll be dealt with. Understood? I nodded, my wrist still burning. Good. They led me out of the vehicle and through a side entrance, down corridors lit by torches that cast dancing shadows on stone walls. The place smelled of earth and smoke and something else, something wild and powerful that made every instinct I had scream danger. We stopped in front of a heavy wooden door. The woman knocked twice, then pushed it open without waiting for a response. The merchandise from the Eastern Valley Pack, she announced, her hand closing around my upper arm and pushing me forward. Merchandise. That's what I was. A thing to be bought and sold. The room beyond was large and dimly lit, dominated by a massive desk and the man sitting behind it. He was older, his hair gray at the temples, his face lined with scars that spoke of battles survived. He looked me over with calculating eyes. Wolfless? He asked. According to the documentation, the woman confirmed. He stood, moving around the desk with the predatory grace of a dominant wolf. I forced myself not to flinch as he approached, even as every instinct screamed at me to run. He circled me slowly, assessing. Small, he muttered. Weak. What use is she? No one answered. I stared at the floor, my face burning with shame. This was what I'd been reduced to, a transaction found wanting. The king wants to see her, another voice said from the doorway. I looked up sharply. A younger man stood there, tall and broad-shouldered, his expression unreadable. But there was something about the way the others reacted to his presence, the immediate straightening of spines, the subtle shift to attention. Now? The scarred man asked. Now. The scarred man's jaw tightened, but he nodded. The woman's hand returned to my arm, her grip bruising as she pulled me toward the door. We followed the younger man through more corridors, climbing stairs that seemed to go on forever. The higher we went, the quieter it became, until all I could hear was my own breathing and the soft sound of footsteps on stone. Finally, we stopped in front of a door that was larger than the others, made of dark wood carved with symbols I didn't recognize. The younger man knocked once, then opened it. The Eastern Valley Omega, Your Majesty. Your Majesty. My blood ran cold. They'd brought me to the Alpha King himself. I'd heard stories about the king of the Northern Ridge Pack. Everyone had. He was said to be merciless, powerful beyond measure, a leader who had united the Northern Packs through a combination of strategic brilliance and brutal force. Some said he was barely human anymore, that his wolf was so dominant he could shift at will without the moon's influence. Others said he could kill with a look. I was pushed forward into the room, my silver-bound wrists held in front of me. I kept my eyes down, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. The room was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the forest. A fire burned in a hearth large enough to stand in. And in front of those windows, silhouetted against the dying light, stood a figure that radiated such raw power that my knees nearly buckled. He didn't speak immediately. He simply stood there, perfectly still, looking at me. I could feel his gaze like a physical weight, pinning me in place. "Remove the silver," he said finally. His voice was deep, quiet, and absolutely commanding. The woman beside me hesitated for only a fraction of a second before moving to obey. The rope fell away from my wrists, and I bit back a gasp of relief as the burning stopped. "Leave us." "Your Majesty," the scarred man began. "Now." They left. All of them. The door closed with a soft click, and I was alone with the Alpha King. I still didn't look up. I didn't dare. I could hear him moving, his footsteps soft against the floor as he approached. He stopped a few feet away, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him, smell the scent of pine and snow and something darker, something that made my breath catch. "Look at me." It wasn't a request. I forced my eyes up, my gaze traveling over polished boots, dark pants, a simple black shirt that did nothing to hide the powerful build beneath it. And then finally, his face. He was younger than I'd expected. Perhaps in his early 30s, with dark hair and eyes so pale they were almost silver. His features were sharp, aristocratic, beautiful in the way that dangerous things were beautiful. And he was looking at me with an intensity that made me want to disappear. But there was something else in his expression. Something I couldn't name. Not anger. Not disgust. Something, searching. "What's your name?" he asked. "Sera," I managed, my voice barely a whisper. "Sera," he repeated, as if tasting it. "And your pack sent you here." It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway. He moved closer, so close I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. This close, his power was overwhelming, pressing against me like a physical force. I should have been terrified. I was terrified. But there was something else too, a strange pull, a feeling I didn't understand. "They hurt you," he said, his eyes dropping to my wrists, which were already beginning to bruise where the silver had burned. "It's nothing," I said automatically. Pain was nothing. I'd learned to tolerate much worse than burning rope. His eyes snapped back to mine, and I saw something flash in them, something dangerous. "It's not nothing." He reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away if I wanted to. I didn't move. His fingers wrapped around my wrist, so gentle it made my throat tight. He examined the burns, his jaw tightening. "Why didn't your wolf heal this already?" "I don't have a wolf," I said, the familiar shame washing over me. "I've never shifted." I expected disgust. Dismissal. That's what I always got when people learned the truth. But his expression didn't change. He simply continued holding my wrist, his thumb brushing over the burned skin with a touch so careful it made my eyes sting. "I see," he said quietly. He released me, stepping back. I felt the loss of his touch like a physical thing, which made no sense at all. "You'll stay here," he said, moving toward a door I hadn't noticed on the far side of the room. "These are my personal quarters. No one enters without permission. You'll be safe here." I stared at him, confused. "I don't understand." He paused, his hand on the door. "You don't need to." "Not yet." "But why would you?" "Because I choose to," he said, and there was something final in his tone that told me not to press further. "There's a room through here. Everything you need is provided. Rest. We'll speak again tomorrow." He disappeared through the door, leaving me standing alone in the massive room, my mind spinning. This wasn't what I'd expected. I'd expected cruelty, or at best, indifference. I'd expected to be used in whatever way they saw fit. I'd expected pain. I hadn't expected this. This strange, careful distance. This unexpected protection. I didn't understand it. But as I moved toward the door he'd indicated, finding a bedroom beyond it that was larger and more luxurious than any space I'd ever occupied, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt a tiny, fragile spark of something that might have been hope. I didn't sleep much that first night. The bed was too soft, the room too quiet, and my mind wouldn't stop racing. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the Alpha King's face, felt the gentle way he'd touched my burned wrists. It didn't make sense. None of this made sense. Men like him, powerful, dominant alphas, they didn't show kindness to wolfless omegas. They especially didn't offer them protection. I was nothing to him. Less than nothing. So why had he looked at me like I mattered? When dawn finally came, I rose and explored the small suite I'd been given. The bedroom was connected to a bathroom that had running water, hot water, and towels so soft they felt like clouds. There was a closet with clothes in it, simple but well-made, all in my size. On a small table, I found food, bread, cheese, fruit, and water. Someone had prepared all this. Someone had known I was coming. I ate slowly, my stomach not quite trusting the sudden abundance. Then I bathed, washing away days of travel and fear, letting the hot water soothe my burned wrists. When I finally looked at myself in the mirror, I barely recognized the girl staring back. She looked cleaner, yes, but also smaller somehow. More lost. I dressed in the clothes provided, dark pants and a soft gray sweater, and waited. The Alpha King had said we would speak again, but he hadn't said when. So I sat by the window in the bedroom and watched the compound wake up below. It was massive. From this height, I could see the full extent of the territory. Training grounds where wolves sparred in both human and wolf form. Gardens that looked almost too organized to be natural. Buildings that served purposes I could only guess at. And everywhere, wolves, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all moving with purpose and power. This was what a real pack looked like. Not the struggling, insecure group my father had led, but something ancient and unshakable. These wolves knew their place in the world. They knew their worth. I pressed my hand against the window, feeling the cool glass against my palm. What was my place here? What worth did I have in a pack like this? The door to the main room opened. I tensed, my heart jumping into my throat. But it wasn't the Alpha King. It was a woman, older, with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a practical braid. "Good morning," she said, her voice gentle. "I'm Helena. I manage the household staff. His Majesty asked me to check on you." "I'm fine," I said automatically. She smiled slightly, as if she'd expected that answer. "May I see your wrists?" I hesitated, then held them out. The burns looked better than they had last night, but they were still visible, still painful. Helena made a soft sound of disapproval. "Silver," she muttered. "Barbaric. Come, I have salve that will help." She led me back into the main room, settling me in a chair near the fire. She worked quietly, her touches gentle as the Alpha King's had been, spreading a cool salve over the burns. It smelled of herbs and something sweet, and the relief was immediate. "Thank you," I said softly. "It's no trouble." She finished wrapping my wrists in soft bandages, then sat back. "You must have questions." I had 1,000 questions. But I didn't know which ones I was allowed to ask. "Why am I here?" I finally managed. Helena's expression grew careful. "That's something His Majesty will need to explain. It's not my place. But I don't understand why he would. Give you his personal quarters?" Helena finished. "Protect you? Show you kindness?" I nodded, my throat tight. She was quiet for a moment, studying my face. "Has anyone ever told you that you're worth protecting, child?" The question hit me like a physical blow. I looked away, blinking hard against sudden tears. "No," I whispered. "Never." "Well," Helena said firmly, "perhaps it's time you learned." She stood, smoothing her skirts. "His Majesty will return this evening. Until then, you're free to rest, to read, there are books in the study through that door, or to simply be. You're not a prisoner here, Sera. You're a guest." After she left, I sat in that chair for a long time, staring into the fire. A guest. When had I ever been a guest anywhere? In my father's pack, I'd been a burden. A shame. Something to be hidden away and forgotten. Here, in the home of the most powerful alpha in the north, I was a guest. I didn't understand it. But slowly, carefully, I let myself believe it might be true. The Alpha King returned as the sun was setting. I'd spent the day reading, or trying to read. The study was full of books, more than I'd ever seen in one place, covering everything from pack history to strategy to what looked like poetry. I'd chosen one at random and curled up in a chair by the window, but the words kept blurring together. My mind wouldn't settle. When I heard the door open, I stood quickly, smoothing my clothes nervously. He entered quietly, his presence immediately filling the space. He looked tired, I noticed. There were shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there before. "Sera," he said, inclining his head slightly. "Did you rest?" "Yes, Your Majesty." Something flickered in his expression. "Kale. My name is Kale." I blinked, surprised. I couldn't." "You can," he said simply. "Here, in these rooms, you can call me Kale." He moved to the sideboard, pouring himself a drink. I watched as he downed it in one swallow, his shoulders tight with tension. Whatever he'd been dealing with today, it had cost him something. "How are your wrists?" he asked, his back still to me. "Better. Helena brought salve." He nodded, then turned to face me. For a long moment, we simply looked at each other. I didn't know what he saw when he looked at me, but whatever it was, it made his expression soften slightly. "You must be confused," he said. That was an understatement. "Yes. Ask me. Whatever you want to know. I'll answer what I can." I gathered my courage. "Why did you bring me here?" "I didn't," he said. "Your father made arrangements with my beta. I wasn't informed until you were already on your way." That surprised me. "Then why did you take me in?" He was quiet for a moment, his pale eyes searching my face. "Because I could sense what you were the moment you walked into this room. And I knew what would happen to you if I didn't intervene." "What I am?" I echoed, confused. "I'm nothing. I'm wolfless." "You're not wolfless," he said, and the certainty in his voice made me freeze. "Your wolf is there, Sera. She's just sleeping." I shook my head. "That's not possible. I'm 22. If I had a wolf, she would have emerged years ago." "Under normal circumstances, yes." He moved closer, and I found myself unable to look away from him. "But your circumstances aren't normal. Your wolf isn't typical. She's been waiting." "Waiting for what?" "For you to be somewhere safe enough for her to emerge." His words didn't make sense, but they still sent a shiver through me. "How do you know that?" "Because I can feel her," he said simply. "She's there, just beneath your skin. Waiting. Watching." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly it hurt. But I'd spent 6 years being told I was broken, defective, worthless. 6 years of disappointment and shame. I couldn't just let that go because a powerful alpha told me to. "Why would you care?" I asked, my voice smaller than I'd intended. "Even if that's true, why would the Alpha King care about one wolfless, one potentially wolfless, Omega?" His expression grew carefully neutral. "Because everyone in my territory deserves protection. That's what it means to be a leader." It was a good answer. A proper answer. But I had the strangest feeling it wasn't the whole truth. There was something else, something he wasn't saying. Something in the way he looked at me, in the careful distance he maintained, in the control I could see him exerting over every word and movement. "How long do I need to stay here?" I asked. "As long as you choose to." "And if I want to leave?" His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Then you leave. You're not a prisoner, Sera. You never will be." I studied him, this powerful man who had shown me more kindness in 2 days than my own family had in years. There was something magnetic about him, something that drew me in even as it terrified me. And underneath it all, that strange pull I'd felt yesterday, stronger now, insistent. "I don't understand you," I said softly. "I know." He moved toward the door to his private chambers. "You will. In time. For now, just rest. Heal. Let yourself be safe." He was almost through the door when I spoke again. "Kale?" He paused, and I saw his shoulders tense at the sound of his name on my lips. "Thank you," I said. "For whatever your reasons, thank you." He didn't turn around. "Don't thank me yet, Sera. You don't know what being here means." Then he was gone, leaving me alone with questions that had no answers and a strange, fluttering feeling in my chest that I didn't dare name. Days passed in a strange sort of rhythm. I woke each morning in the soft bed, still surprised by the luxury of it. Helena would arrive with breakfast and fresh bandages for my wrists, which were healing quickly now. We would talk, small, careful conversations about nothing important. The weather. The books in the study. The history of the compound. I never saw Kale during the day. He was busy with pack business, Helena explained. The Northern Ridge pack wasn't just large, it was powerful, with alliances and territories that stretched across the entire northern region. Managing it required constant attention, constant decisions. But every evening, as the sun set, he would return. And we would talk. They were strange conversations. He never touched me, never came closer than a few feet. But he would ask me questions, about my life, my childhood, what I liked to read. And slowly, carefully, I would answer. It had been so long since anyone had asked me about myself that I'd almost forgotten how to talk about it. In return, I learned about him. He'd become Alpha King at 25, after his father's death in a challenge. He'd spent the last 7 years consolidating power, making alliances, turning the Northern Ridge pack from a strong pack into the dominant force in the region. He was respected. Feared. Obeyed without question. But here, in these rooms, he was just Kale. Quiet. Careful. Almost gentle. "Did you always want to be Alpha King?" I asked one evening. We were sitting by the fire, me curled in my usual chair, him standing by the window. "No," he said. "I wanted to be a scholar. I loved history, strategy. I wanted to study, to learn." What changed? My father died. And someone had to lead. There was something in his voice, not quite grief, but close to it. Loss, perhaps. Or regret. "Do you wish things had been different?" I asked softly. He was quiet for a long moment. "Every day," he finally said. "But wishing changes nothing. We are what we're called to be, whether we choose it or not." I understood that more than he knew. I hadn't chosen to be Wolfless any more than he'd chosen to be king. We were both trapped by circumstances beyond our control. "Sera," he said, turning from the window. "Have you felt anything? Any changes?" I knew what he was asking. Whether my wolf had stirred. Whether she'd shown any signs of emerging. "No," I said, trying not to let the disappointment show in my voice. "Nothing." He nodded slowly, but I saw something flicker in his expression. Concern, maybe. Or frustration. "It will happen," he said. "When you're ready." "How can you be so sure?" He moved closer, crouching down so we were at eye level. This close, I could see flecks of darker gray in his pale eyes, could smell that intoxicating scent of pine and snow. "Because I can feel her," he said quietly. "Every time I'm near you, I can feel her there, just beneath the surface. She's strong, Sera. Stronger than you know. She's just waiting for the right moment." "And when will that be?" "When you feel safe enough to let her out." His words hung in the air between us. Safe. When had I ever felt truly safe? Not in my father's pack, where every day was a reminder of my failure. Not in the journey here, silver burning my wrists. But here, in these rooms, with this strange, careful alpha who showed me kindness for reasons I didn't understand. Maybe I was starting to feel safe. Kale stood, putting distance between us again. He always did that, came close enough to make my breath catch, then pulled away before I could get used to it. I have to attend a council meeting tomorrow, he said. It will take most of the day. Helena will check on you, but if you need anything at all, there are guards outside. They've been instructed to help you. You don't need to. I do, he said firmly. You're under my protection, Sera. That means something here. After he left, I sat by the fire and thought about his words. Under his protection. It was more than my own father had ever offered me. More than I'd ever thought to ask for. I pressed my hand against my chest, over my heart, and tried to feel what Kale claimed was there. A wolf. My wolf. Sleeping, waiting. I felt nothing. Just the steady beat of my heart and the warmth of the fire. But for the first time in 6 years, I let myself hope that maybe, just maybe, he was right. The change came on the 8th day. I woke to a strange feeling, a restlessness in my bones, an energy that wouldn't settle. Helena noticed it immediately when she arrived with breakfast. Are you feeling all right? She asked, concern in her eyes. I don't know, I admitted. I feel strange. Like something's not quite right. She studied me for a moment, then a small smile crossed her face. Perhaps you should spend some time outside today. Fresh air might help. Outside? I echoed. I hadn't left these rooms since I'd arrived. The King's Gardens, Helena said. They're private, connected to these quarters. No one goes there without permission. You'll be safe. She led me through a door I hadn't noticed before, and suddenly I was outside. The garden was beautiful, wild in a way that suggested careful neglect, full of flowers and herbs and trees that grew however they pleased. A high stone wall surrounded it, ensuring complete privacy. I walked through it slowly, breathing in the scent of earth and growing things. The restlessness didn't fade, but it shifted, becoming something else. Something almost like anticipation. I found myself in a small clearing at the center of the garden, surrounded by old trees. The morning sun filtered through the leaves, casting patterns on the ground. And suddenly, without warning, pain lanced through my body. I gasped, falling to my knees. It felt like something was trying to tear its way out of me from the inside. My bones ached. My skin felt too tight. And beneath it all, I felt something stirring, something that had been asleep for so very long. No, I whispered, even as hope surged through me. No, this isn't. But it was. After 6 years of waiting, of disappointment, of being told I was broken, it was finally happening. My wolf was waking up. The pain intensified, and I couldn't hold back a scream. Distantly, I heard shouting, heard people run in something powerful and ancient and mine. And then I was shifting. It should have G. But I couldn't focus on that. All I could focus on was the feeling of something emerging, been agony. I'd heard stories about first shifts, how painful they were. But this felt like coming home. Like finding a part of myself I'd lost. My bones reshaped, my muscles reformed, and suddenly I wasn't Sera the Wolfless Omega anymore. I was something else entirely. I opened eyes that saw colors I'd never seen before, scented things I'd never smelled. My body felt strong, powerful, right in a way it never had before. I looked down at paws that were broader than they should be, at fur that shimmered in the morning light. Silver. My wolf was silver. Impossible, someone breathed. I turned, my new instincts identifying the threat before my human mind caught up. There were wolves surrounding me, pack wolves, drawn by my scream. They stood frozen, staring at me with expressions that ranged from shock to something that looked almost like fear. A silver wolf, someone else whispered. They're extinct. They've been extinct for. Everyone out. The command cut through the chaos like a blade. Now. Kale. He stood at the entrance to the garden, and even in my wolf form, I could feel the power radiating from him. The other wolves scattered immediately, disappearing through doors and over walls until it was just the two of us. He walked toward me slowly, his movements careful and non-threatening. When he was a few feet away, he stopped and lowered himself into a crouch. "Hello," he said softly. "It's good to finally meet you." My wolf rumbled, not a threat, but an acknowledgement. She recognized him somehow, felt safe with him in a way that my human side was only beginning to understand. "You're beautiful," he continued, his voice low and soothing. "Exactly as I knew you would be." He'd known. Somehow, he'd known what I was before even I did. I took a tentative step toward him, and he remained perfectly still, letting me approach at my own pace. When I was close enough, I lowered my head, and he slowly, carefully, raised his hand to rest on my fur. The moment his skin made contact, something snapped into place. A connection I hadn't known was missing suddenly completed itself, and I felt it, the bond. The mate bond. That invisible thread that tied two souls together. He was my mate. The Alpha King was my mate. And he'd known. All this time, he'd known, and he'd said nothing. He'd given me space, given me time, let me heal and feel safe before my wolf emerged. Because he'd known that if he'd forced it, if he'd claimed me before I was ready, it would have destroyed me. The realization hit me like a wave, and I shifted back without meaning to. One moment I was wolf, the next I was human again, kneeling in the grass, tears streaming down my face. "You knew," I whispered. "You knew the whole time." Kale removed his jacket and draped it over my shoulders, giving me some modesty. His expression was carefully neutral, but I could see the tension in his jaw, the tightness around his eyes. "Yes," he said simply. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you wouldn't have believed me. And because I needed you to discover it yourself, in your own time, without pressure from me." I pulled his jacket tighter around myself, trying to process everything. My wolf finally emerged. The mate bond, singing between us. The fact that this powerful, patient man had been protecting me from the moment I'd arrived, asking nothing in return. "A silver wolf," I said, my voice shaking. "That's what they said." "What does that mean?" Kale settled onto the grass beside me, maintaining that careful distance even now. "Silver wolves are legendary. They haven't been seen in over a century. They're said to be the original wolves, the first of our kind. Powerful. Rare. And bonded only to alphas of the strongest bloodlines." "Is that why you?" "No," he said firmly. "That's not why I protected you, Sera. I protected you because you're my mate. Because from the moment you walked into my territory, I could feel the bond forming, even if you couldn't. Your wolf knew me before she even woke up. She was waiting for me, just as mine has been waiting for her." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the truth in his eyes. The restraint. The patience. The way he'd been holding himself back, giving me time, space, choice. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now?" He smiled slightly. "Now you have a choice to make. The bond is there, but it doesn't have to be completed. Not until you're ready. Not until you choose it." "And if I never choose it?" Pain flickered across his face, quickly suppressed. "Then I will still protect you. I will still keep you safe. But I won't force your hand, Sera. I won't claim what isn't freely given." I could feel the bond between us, pulling me toward him. My wolf wanted him, wanted to complete what had started. But my human side, the part that had been hurt and rejected and sold like property, that part needed more time. "I need to think," I said softly. "Take all the time you need," he said, standing and offering me his hand. "Come. Let's get you inside before the entire pack descends on us with questions." I took his hand, feeling the spark of the bond where our skin touched. He helped me to my feet, then guided me back toward the quarters, his jacket still wrapped around me. As we walked, I couldn't help but notice the way he moved, always positioned between me and any potential threat, always aware of his surroundings, always protecting me without making it obvious. My mate. This careful, powerful alpha was my mate. And for the first time since I'd arrived, I let myself imagine what it might mean to accept that bond. To choose him, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. But first, I needed to understand what being a silver wolf meant. And what it would cost me. The pack was in chaos. I could hear it from the private quarters, raised voices, footsteps running, the unmistakable sound of too many wolves in one place trying to process impossible information. Helena had brought me clothes and helped me dress, her hands gentle but efficient, her expression troubled. A silver wolf, she murmured, more to herself than to me. In all my years, I never thought I'd see one. What does it mean? I asked. Kale told me they're rare, but... Helena met my eyes, and I saw worry there. It means you're in danger, child. A silver wolf bonded to the Alpha King? There will be those who see that as a threat. And those who see it as an opportunity. Before I could ask what she meant, the door burst open. A man entered, the scarred one from my first night, the one who'd assessed me like merchandise. His eyes locked onto me, and I saw something dangerous in them. Is it true? He demanded. Did she really shift into a silver wolf? Marcus, Kale's voice was deadly quiet as he entered behind the man. You will address her with respect, or you will leave. Marcus's jaw clenched, but he nodded curtly. Forgive me. Did you shift into a silver wolf, Sera? I looked to Kale, who gave me a subtle nod. It was my choice whether to answer. Yes, I said, lifting my chin. I did. Marcus's expression grew calculating. Then we need to present her to the council. Immediately. This changes everything. No, Kale said flatly. Your Majesty, with respect, you know what this means. A silver wolf hasn't been seen in over a century. If word gets out, and it will get out, every pack in the region will want to see her. To assess her. The way he said assess made my skin crawl. I moved closer to Kale without thinking, and his hand came to rest on my lower back, the first time he'd touched me so casually, so protectively. She's not a spectacle to be paraded around, Kale said, his voice hard as stone. And she's certainly not available for assessment by anyone. Because she's your mate, Marcus said, and there was an edge to his voice I didn't like. Kale's expression didn't change. Because she's under my protection. That's all anyone needs to know. The council can wait, Kale finished. Sera has just experienced her first shift. She needs time to adjust, to understand what she is. I won't have her overwhelmed by politics and power plays before she's ready. Marcus opened his mouth to argue, then seemed to think better of it. He bowed stiffly and left, but not before shooting me one more assessing look that made my wolf bristle beneath my skin. The moment we were alone, Kale's hand dropped from my back. He moved away, putting distance between us again, and I felt the loss of his touch like a physical ache. I'm sorry, he said. I'd hoped for more time before the pack learned what you are. Is he right? I asked. Will other packs want to see me? Kale's expression grew dark. They'll want more than that. A silver wolf is a symbol of power, Sera. Ancient power. Packs will see you as a prize to be won. Or a threat to be eliminated. Fear curled in my stomach. Then maybe I should leave. If I'm putting you in danger. You're not leaving, he said, and there was something almost fierce in his voice. You're not going anywhere unless you choose to. And if you do choose to leave, it will be with enough protection to ensure your safety. Why? The question burst out of me before I could stop it. Why do you care so much? The mate bond isn't complete. You could just let me go. It would be easier. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Easier. Yes, it would be easier. It would also be impossible. I don't understand. He moved to the window, his back to me, his shoulders tense. Do you know what it's like, Sera, to feel your mate before you meet her? To know she's out there, suffering, being hurt, and you can't do anything about it? I went very still. I felt you years ago, he continued, his voice low. The moment you turned 18 and your wolf should have emerged. I felt the bond trying to form, felt your pain when it didn't happen. I've spent 4 years knowing my mate was out there, struggling, and I couldn't find you. Couldn't help you. He turned to face me, and the raw emotion in his eyes stole my breath. Then you walked into my territory, silver burns on your wrists, defeat in your eyes, expecting cruelty because that's all you'd ever known. And you ask me why I care? He shook his head. Mate bond or not, completed or not, I would burn the world down before I let anyone hurt you again. My throat was tight. You don't even know me. I know you're strong. I know you've survived things that would have broken others. I know you see yourself as worthless, but you're the farthest thing from it. He took a step toward me, then stopped himself. And I know that forcing this bond, claiming you before you were ready, would have destroyed everything beautiful about you. So yes, I waited. And I'll keep waiting, for as long as you need. I wanted to go to him. My wolf was practically howling at me to close the distance, to let him hold me, to complete what had started. But my human side was still afraid. Still waiting for the other shoe to drop. I need time, I whispered. Then take it, he said. But Sera, I need you to understand something. Other packs will come. They'll want to see the silver wolf, to test her, to claim her for themselves. And I will stop them. Whatever it takes, I will keep you safe. But it's going to get dangerous. If you want to leave before that happens. No, I said firmly. I'm not running. I've been running my whole life, trying to be small enough, quiet enough, invisible enough. I'm done running. Something fierce and proud flashed in his eyes. Good. Then we'll face this together. Together. It was a word I'd never had reason to use before. But as I looked at this powerful, patient alpha who'd given me everything and asked for nothing in return, I thought maybe, just maybe, I could learn what it meant. The council meeting was inevitable. 3 days after my shift, Kale finally agreed to present me to the pack's leadership. Not because he wanted to, he'd made that clear, but because refusing would only fuel speculation and make things worse. You don't have to shift, he told me as Helena helped me dress that morning. You don't have to do anything you're uncomfortable with. You're there as my guest, under my protection. They can look, but they can't touch. I appreciated the reassurance, but I could feel his tension. This was important, not just for me, but for the pack. A silver wolf was a big deal, even if I didn't fully understand why yet. Helena had chosen my clothes carefully, simple but well-made, in shades of gray that complemented my coloring without being too obvious. My hair was pulled back, my posture straight. I looked, I thought, like someone who belonged in the Alpha King's compound. Even if I didn't feel like it. Kale offered me his arm, and I took it. The gesture was formal, but the way his hand covered mine was gentle. Protective. Stay close to me, he murmured as we left the private quarters. Don't let anyone intimidate you. You are under my protection, and everyone in that room knows what that means. The council room was exactly what I'd expected, large, imposing, dominated by a massive table surrounded by chairs. Men and women filled those chairs, all of them radiating power, all of them turning to stare as we entered. Kale led me to the head of the table, where 2 chairs waited. He sat in the larger one, then gestured for me to take the seat beside him, a position of honor that wasn't lost on anyone in the room. Thank you for coming, Kale said, his voice carrying the weight of command. I know there have been questions about our newest pack member. This is Sera. She recently experienced her first shift, and yes, she is a silver wolf. The room erupted. Everyone tried to speak at once, their voices overlapping in a chaos of questions and demands. But one voice cut through the noise. Let us see. It was a woman, older, with sharp eyes and an expression that suggested she was used to being obeyed. She sat 3 seats down from Cale, her posture radiating authority. Elder Miriam, Cale said, and there was a warning in his tone. Sera is not a performance. Nevertheless, Miriam said coolly, the council has a right to verify this claim. Silver wolves have been extinct for over a century. Forgive us for being skeptical. I felt Cale tense beside me, felt his desire to refuse. But I also understood the politics at play. If I refused to shift, they would question everything. They might even think Cale was lying, which would undermine his authority. I touched his arm gently, drawing his attention. It's all right, I said quietly. I'll do it. You don't have to. I know, I said. But I want to. Let them see what I am. Let them understand why you protected me. His eyes searched mine, looking for any sign of hesitation. Whatever he saw there must have satisfied him, because he nodded slowly. Very well. But if anyone approaches her without permission, if anyone threatens her in any way, this meeting is over. Understood? The council members nodded, though some looked resentful. I stood, moving to an open space near the window. My wolf was right there beneath my skin, eager to emerge. The shift was easier this time, smoother, less painful. One moment I was human, the next I was wolf, my silver fur catching the light from the windows. The room fell silent. I stood there, letting them look, letting them see what I was. My wolf was calm, confident in a way my human side had never been. She knew her worth. She knew her power. And she knew that the alpha sitting at the head of the table would protect her from any threat. Impossible, someone breathed. The legends were true, another whispered. Elder Miriam stood slowly, her eyes locked on me. May I? She asked, and there was genuine respect in her voice now. I looked to Cale, who gave a slight nod. Miriam approached carefully, her movements slow and non-threatening. When she was a few feet away, she stopped. I never thought I'd see this in my lifetime, she said softly. The original wolf. The first of our kind. She looked up at Cale. Do you understand what this means, Your Majesty? What she represents? I understand, Cale said quietly. Then you understand that other packs will come. They'll want to see her. To claim her. To use her power for themselves. Let them come, Cale said, and there was steel in his voice. She is under my protection. Anyone who threatens her threatens me. And if they challenge you for her? The room went very still. I shifted back to human form, Cale's jacket appearing around my shoulders immediately. One of the pack members must have had it ready. I returned to my seat, acutely aware of every eye on me. Then I will answer that challenge, Cale said simply. As I would for any member of my pack. But I saw the look that passed between him and Elder Miriam. We all knew he was understating it. This wasn't about pack duty. This was about the mate bond, about the connection that tied us together. Marcus, who'd been silent until now, leaned forward. Perhaps we should be proactive. Present her to the other packs ourselves, on our terms. Show them that the Northern Ridge pack has the Silver Wolf, and that she's under the Alpha King's personal protection. No, I said, before Cale could respond. Every head turned to me. I'd barely spoken since entering the room, and my voice rang out louder than I'd intended. No, I repeated, more calmly. I'm not a trophy to be shown off. I'm not a symbol to be used for political gain. I'm a person, and I will not be paraded around like some prize you've won. Marcus's eyes narrowed. With respect, you don't understand pack politics. I understand being treated like property, I said, my voice sharp. I understand being valued only for what I can do for others. And I'm done with it. I looked at Cale, my heart pounding. You said I have a choice. You said I'm not a prisoner. So I'm choosing. I'll stay here, I'll be part of this pack if you'll have me, but I won't be used. Not by you, not by anyone. The room was silent. I'd just challenged the Alpha King's beta in front of the entire council. I'd just rejected their political strategy. I'd just asserted my autonomy in a way that Wolfless Omegas, even newly shifted ones, simply didn't do. But Kale was smiling. It was small, barely noticeable, but it was there. Sera is right, he said, and his voice carried absolute authority. She's not a tool for our use. She's a pack member, entitled to the same respect and autonomy as anyone else here. If other packs want to see her, they can request a meeting through proper channels. But she will never be forced to appear, to shift, or to prove herself to anyone. Is that understood? The council members nodded, though some looked less than pleased. Good, Kale said. Now, if there are no other questions, this meeting is adjourned. As we left the council room, Kale's hand found the small of my back again, that now familiar protective gesture. You were magnificent, he murmured, too quiet for anyone else to hear. I was terrified, I admitted. I know. That's what made it magnificent. Back in the private quarters, I finally allowed myself to collapse into a chair. My hands were shaking, adrenaline still coursing through my veins. Did I just make things worse? I asked. No, Kale said firmly. You made things clear. You established boundaries. That's important. Marcus looked like he wanted to kill me. Marcus is ambitious. He sees your power and wants to use it to strengthen the pack. But he'll respect your wishes, or he'll answer to me. I looked up at him, this alpha who kept defending me, kept protecting me, kept giving me choices when he could have simply commanded my obedience. Why? I asked. Why do you keep doing this? You could just order me. Force me. You're the Alpha King. You have that right. No, he said, crouching down in front of my chair. I don't. Strength isn't about forcing obedience, Sera. It's about earning trust. Protecting those who can't protect themselves. Making the hard choices so others don't have to. His hand came up, hovering near my face but not quite touching. Asking permission. I leaned into his touch, and his palm cupped my cheek with infinite gentleness. You're not property, he said softly. You're not a tool. You're not worthless. You're my mate, and even if you never accept that bond, you'll still be worth protecting. Worth defending. Worth every choice I've made. Tears stung my eyes. I don't know how to believe that. Then let me believe it for you, he said. Until you're ready to believe it yourself. And in that moment, with his hand warm against my cheek and his eyes full of a patience I didn't deserve, I thought maybe I could. The first challenge came 2 weeks later. I'd settled into a routine by then. Mornings in the garden, working with my wolf, learning to shift at will. Afternoons in the study, reading everything I could find about silver wolves and pack history. Evenings with Kale, talking, learning about each other, the bond between us growing stronger even though neither of us acknowledged it directly. Helena had become a friend, teaching me about the pack, about politics, about the delicate balance of power that kept everything running smoothly. She never asked about my relationship with Kale, but I could see the approval in her eyes whenever we were together. I was almost happy. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged somewhere. Then the messenger arrived. I was in the study when I heard raised voices from the main room. Kale's voice, tight with barely controlled anger. Another voice, unfamiliar, arrogant. I moved to the doorway, staying out of sight but close enough to hear. Unprecedented, the unfamiliar voice was saying. A silver wolf, and you keep her hidden away like a shameful secret. Alpha Darius wishes to extend an invitation to meet her. Alpha Darius can extend whatever invitations he likes, Kale said coldly. Sera is under my protection. She's not available for meetings. Even with the Alpha of the Western Shore Pack? We're allies, Your Majesty. Surely you wouldn't insult our alliance by refusing such a simple request. There was a moment of silence, heavy with tension. What Darius wants, Kale said slowly, is to assess whether Sera would strengthen his pack. To see if she can be persuaded to leave my protection and accept his instead. The answer is no. You presume to speak for her? I speak for my mate. The words hung in the air. It was the first time Cale had claimed me publicly, the first time he'd acknowledged the bond to anyone outside these rooms. Your mate, the messenger repeated, and I could hear the calculation in his voice. How interesting. And does she agree with that assessment? That's none of Darius's concern. He'll take your refusal as a challenge. Then he can come and issue it himself, Cale said flatly. You're dismissed. I heard footsteps, a door slamming, and then silence. I stepped into the room to find Cale standing by the window, his shoulders rigid with tension. How much did you hear? He asked without turning around. Enough, I said. You called me your mate. I did. Why? He turned to face me, and I saw something vulnerable in his expression. Because it's the truth. Because I'm tired of hiding it. And because if I don't make it clear that you're claimed, every alpha in the region will come sniffing around, trying to win you for themselves. Win me, I echoed. Like I'm a prize. To them, you are, he said bluntly. A silver wolf bonded to a powerful alpha creates a bloodline of unprecedented strength. Every alpha with ambition will want that for themselves. Fear curled in my stomach. So this Darius will challenge me for the right to court you, yes. And if he wins? Cale's expression went hard. He won't. But if he does? Then I'll be dead, Cale said simply. Because that's the only way he'll get to you. The certainty in his voice, the absolute conviction that he would die before he'd let me be taken, it should have frightened me. Instead, something warm bloomed in my chest. I don't want you to fight for me, I said softly. I know. But it's not your choice, Sera. He'll come. And when he does, I'll answer his challenge. Because you're mine, whether you've accepted the bond or not. There was possession in his voice, but not the cruel kind. Not the kind that sought to control. This was the possession of a mate protecting what was his. Of an alpha defending his pack. Of a man who'd waited patiently for weeks, asking nothing, and was now facing the possibility of losing everything. I crossed the room before I could second-guess myself. Cale's eyes widened slightly as I approached, but he didn't move, didn't reach for me. Sera. I rose on my toes and pressed my lips to his. The kiss was soft, tentative, nothing like the claiming kiss that would complete the mate bond. But it was a promise. An acknowledgement. A choice. When I pulled back, Cale's eyes were molten silver, his control visibly fraying. What was that for? He asked, his voice rough. For being patient, I said. For protecting me. For giving me a choice when you could have just taken. His hand came up to cup my face, his thumb brushing over my lips. I would wait forever, if that's what you needed. I know, I said. But I don't think I need forever anymore. Something fierce and hungry flashed in his eyes, but he didn't act on it. He simply held my face gently, looking at me like I was something precious. After, he said quietly. After I deal with Darius. After I know you're safe. Then we can talk about the bond. About completing it. But not now. Not with threats on the horizon. Why not now? Because completing the mate bond will make you vulnerable, he said. For the first few days afterward, you'll be weak, recovering. I won't risk that, not with challengers circling. Always protecting. Always thinking 3 steps ahead. Always putting my safety before his own desires. When? I asked. When it's safe, he promised. When I can properly claim you without fear of someone using that vulnerability against us. When I can focus entirely on you, instead of on keeping you alive. It wasn't the answer I wanted, but I understood it. In the world of packs and alphas and ancient power, safety had to come first. Then win, I said firmly. Win, and come back to me. And then we'll finish this. He smiled, a real smile, full of promise and heat. Yes, my mate. We will. Darius arrived 3 days later. I watched from the window as his convoy pulled into the compound, expensive vehicles, more guards than necessary, a display of wealth and power meant to intimidate. The man who emerged from the lead vehicle was tall and handsome in a cold sort of way, his movements calculated, his expression arrogant. Stay inside, Cale had told me that morning. No matter what happens, don't come out. Promise me. I'd promised, though every instinct I had screamed at me to be there, to watch, to protect my mate the way he'd been protecting me. Helena sat with me, her hand warm on mine. He'll win, she said quietly. The Alpha King has never lost a challenge. There's a first time for everything, I said, unable to keep the fear from my voice. Not today. Not for this. From the window, I watched as Cale emerged from the main building. Even from this distance, I could feel his power, see the way the other wolves reacted to his presence. He was magnificent, every inch the Alpha King, radiating dominance and control. Darius approached him, and even though I couldn't hear what they were saying, I could read the body language. Darius was posturing, making his challenge official. Cale was listening with that perfect, terrible patience he'd shown me so many times. Then they were shifting, both of them, and my breath caught. Cale's wolf was massive, black as midnight, with those same pale silver eyes. But it was more than his size. It was the way he moved, the way the very air seemed to bend around him. This was an apex predator, a king among wolves. Darius's wolf was large too, all golden fur and flashing teeth. Strong. Fast. Dangerous. But not strong enough. Not fast enough. Not dangerous enough. The fight was brutal and brief. Cale moved with precision, every attack calculated, every defense perfect. He wasn't fighting for sport or pride. He was fighting for his mate, and that made him unstoppable. When it was over, Darius's wolf lay on the ground, throat exposed in submission. Cale's jaws were around his neck, one wrong move away from ending his life. But he didn't. He held the position for a long moment, making his dominance clear, then released Darius and stepped back. The Western Shore Alpha shifted back to human form, blood on his face, defeat in his eyes. Cale shifted too, and even from here I could see he was barely winded. He said something, probably offering mercy, probably making it clear that Sera was his and his alone, probably ensuring this would never happen again. Then he was walking back toward the building, toward me, and relief flooded through me so powerfully my knees nearly buckled. He was safe. He'd won. And now? Now we could finish this. I met him at the door to the private quarters. He was still shirtless, streaked with dirt and a little blood. Darius had gotten in a few hits. But he was whole, and he was here, and that was all that mattered. You promised you'd stay inside, he said, but there was no heat in it. I did stay inside, I pointed out. Technically. He smiled, then winced as the movement pulled at a cut on his lip. I reached up without thinking, touching the injury gently. You're hurt. It's nothing. It'll heal in an hour. Cale. I'm fine, Sera. I've had worse. I looked up at him, this alpha who'd fought for me, bled for me, protected me from the moment I'd arrived. Who'd given me time and space and choices when he could have simply taken what the mate bond gave him the right to. I'm ready, I said softly. He went very still. Ready for what? To complete the bond. To be yours. To choose this, choose you, permanently. His eyes searched mine, looking for doubt, for hesitation. You're sure? I'm sure. Why now? Because you've proven, over and over, that you'll put my safety before your own desires. That you'll protect me without demanding anything in return. Because you fought for me today, not because you had to, but because the thought of losing me was unbearable. I stepped closer, resting my hand over his heart. Because I trust you, Cale. Completely. And because I want this bond as much as you do. His control, which had been so perfect for so long, finally cracked. He pulled me against him, his mouth finding mine in a kiss that was nothing like the gentle one I'd given him days ago. This was claiming, possessive, full of weeks of restraint finally breaking. But he still didn't complete the bond. Even now, even with permission, he was holding back. I pulled away slightly. "Why are you waiting?" "Because once we start, I won't be able to stop," he said, his voice rough. "And I need you to be absolutely certain. The bond is permanent, Sera. Once it's complete, you'll be tied to me for life. If you have any doubts—" "I don't," I said firmly. "I choose you. I choose this. Now stop being noble and claim your mate." His eyes flashed that molten silver, and I felt his wolf surge to the surface. "Are you ordering me, Omega?" "Yes," I said, smiling. "I am." He laughed, a real, genuine laugh full of joy and relief and promise. Then he was lifting me, carrying me toward the bedroom, his mouth on mine and the mate bond singing between us. "You're mine," he murmured against my lips. "Yes," I agreed. "And you're mine. Always have been." He laid me on the bed with infinite care, looking down at me like I was something precious. Something worth protecting. Something worth choosing. "Last chance," he said softly. "After this, there's no going back." "I don't want to go back," I said. "I only want forward. With you." And as he lowered himself over me, as the bond began to snap into place properly, I thought about how far I'd come. From the worthless Omega my father had sold to the silver wolf choosing her mate. From the girl who'd believed she had no value to the woman who knew her worth. Kale had given me that. Not through force, not through commands, but through patience and protection and the kind of love that asked nothing and gave everything. "I love you," I whispered as the bond completed itself, wrapping around both of our hearts, tying us together for eternity. "I've loved you since the moment I felt you," he said. "And I'll love you until the day I die." The bond settled into place, warm and right and permanent. And as I fell asleep in my mate's arms, protected and cherished and valued, I knew I was finally home. 6 months later, I stood in the same garden where my wolf had first emerged. But everything was different now. I wore a dress of silver silk, my hair loose around my shoulders. Kale stood beside me, his hand warm in mine, as we addressed the gathered packs, not just Northern Ridge, but representatives from every pack in the region. They'd come to see the silver wolf, yes. But more than that, they'd come to see the Alpha King and his mate. To witness what happened when power chose patience over force. When an alpha protected his mate instead of controlling her. "Thank you for coming," Kale said, his voice carrying across the crowd. "Many of you have heard stories about the silver wolf. About ancient power and legendary bloodlines. And all of those stories are true." He looked at me, and I saw the pride in his eyes. The love. "But what matters more is this: Sera is my mate. My equal. My partner. She's not here to be displayed or assessed or judged. She's here because she chooses to be. Because this is her home, her pack, her choice." I stepped forward, and my wolf rose to the surface, not fully shifted, but enough that my eyes changed, enough that silver shimmered under my skin. "I was sold by my own pack," I said, my voice steady. "Treated as worthless because I couldn't shift. I came here expecting cruelty, expecting to be used. Instead, I found protection. Safety. A mate who gave me choices instead of commands." I looked out at the crowd, seeing wolves young and old, dominant and submissive, all of them listening. "Power isn't about force," I continued. "It's about knowing when to fight and when to wait. When to command and when to protect. True strength is having the power to take something and choosing not to. Choosing instead to earn it." Kale's hand found mine again, and the bond between us hummed with warmth. "My mate taught me that," I said. "He could have claimed me the moment I arrived. The bond gave him that right. But he waited. He protected me. He let me heal. And when I finally chose him, it was because he'd proven himself worthy of that choice. I turned to look at Kale, this patient, powerful alpha who'd changed everything. I was told I was worthless, I said. Until the Alpha King saw me shift into a wolf no pack had seen in a century. But the truth is, he saw my worth before that. Before my wolf emerged. Before I knew what I was. Because your worth was never dependent on your wolf, Kale said softly, for my ears alone. It was always there. You just needed someone to recognize it. As the gathered packs began to celebrate, as Helena embraced me and Elder Miriam nodded with approval, as even Marcus cracked a rare smile, I realized something important. I'd been sold as property. Traded like I was worthless. But I'd been protected as fate. Cherished as a mate. Valued as the person I'd always been but never believed I could be. And that made all the difference. Kale leaned down, his lips brushing my ear. Ready to go inside? Why? Because I've shared you with the pack for hours now, he murmured, and I could hear the possessiveness in his voice. And I'm feeling particularly territorial about my mate at the moment. I laughed, letting him guide me toward the compound, away from the crowd. Still? Always, he said. You're mine, Sera. And I'm never letting you forget it. Good, I said, rising on my toes to kiss him. Because I'm not going anywhere. As we disappeared into our private quarters, the bond warm and complete between us, I thought about the girl I'd been 6 months ago. Lost. Broken. Believing she had no value. She'd been wrong. And it had taken an Alpha King, patient and protective and perfect, to prove it. I was worth protecting. Worth choosing. Worth loving. And finally, after 22 years of believing otherwise, I knew it was true.